Eric, by the way you were tearing around that backyard, I think you're fantasizing about being a horse, aren't you? I think you probably want to go do some barrel racing. You think that's in your cards? What do you think, buddy? You're only 10 months old. You had a lot of promise. You're really tearing her off. So I think that's something you got to give a lot of thought to.
Speaking of horses, I've chosen to do a wedding sign with a horse on it because we have some really good friends who live in southwestern Pennsylvania. And I thought it would be a nice touch, since they live on a ranch that has horses, to create a sign, a wedding sign, that has horses on it. So I got an idea several years ago. What I did was I was making kitchen cabinets, and I was doing, as you can see here, I was doing raised panels, and I did it out of oak. The problem is I didn't measure twice and cut once. So what happened was I said, instead of wasting this, I think what I'll do is just throw this part of it here on a CNC, and I'm from Wyoming, so I really like moose, and so I carved a moose. So the project we're going to do today is we're going to do a carving of a horse here. We're going to put some words down here about the wedding and dates, and then we're going to do rails and styles here on the side. The only difference from what you see here is I'm going to do these in walnut. Okay, so we'll do walnut styles and raised panel in oak, and we're going to do some horses.
So let's get to it. I found some scrap 1 1/4 inch thick oak boards I've had for years and decided to use this stock for the raised panel portion of the sign. So I got with the milling process first at the JJP joiner/planer. Once the joining is over, it takes me about 1 minute to change over to the planer. I planed the thickness to just less than 1 inch. I completed the milling process on the Grizzly cabinet saw. Be sure to follow all shop safety precautions, particularly on the table saw. Here I'm ripping my stock without the use of a blade cover and riving knife and splitter to better demonstrate on video. Time to move on to the gluing and clamping table. When making a raised panel, I like to ensure the best grain patterns are matched up on the front of the panel. When carving the horses and routing the raised panel edges, oak grain really results in a beautiful pattern final piece. When clamping, it's important to use smaller clamps at the joints, which will result in a fairly smooth surface. Now on to the drum sander. It only takes about 3 to 4 passes to really get a smooth finish. Obviously, it's very important to get a smooth, flat surface, as it makes for a perfect piece for the CNC, then the raised panel bit at the router table. Use caution when drum sanding a piece this wide. I set the end feed at a very slow speed, and I changed the thickness by just 1/32 of an inch between passes. It's very easy to jam the drum sander and trip the fuse box. Now a trip to the downdraft table for light sanding. Even though the downdraft does a great job of removing dust, still use a mask. I like to apply sanding sealer prior to the CNC, as it clogs the pores and prevents paint spillover when painting the letters on the sign. It also makes final finishing much more efficient. I actually keep more sanding sealer on stock than I do the world's finest beer, Yingling, made here in Pennsylvania. I've used Aura Mask for several years to help prevent paint spillover when using spray paint. I used Vectric Aspire to design and machine the raised panel. I'll briefly cover the very basics of the process I used in this project. I'll be making more detailed videos on how to use Aspire step by step to design and machine 3D carvings on the CNC in future videos. I used a 60-degree V-bit from Amana Tools to carve the words. I used a 1/8 tapered ball nose bit to carve the horses. I then previewed the tool paths as shown on this video clip. Total time for the project was slightly projected to be over 3 hours. Actual time to carve was slightly under 2.5 hours. The following shows the actual carvings. As I previously mentioned, the carving took approximately 2.5 hours, most of it with the horses and the 1/8 inch tapered ball nose bit. Here I'm applying sanding sealer to prevent paint spillover. It also helps to raise the grains on the carving, making it much easier to sand. Using a raised panel bit requires a lower RPM on your router, approximately 12,000 RPM. Be sure to use several passes to prevent burning. You better be prepared to use a lot of elbow grease when sanding the raised panel. I picked up some sanding sticks from my local woodcraft store that helps you get in the tightest places. I use several coats of spray lacquer. It dries quickly and provides a very nice finish. It was now on to constructing the frame using Peruvian walnut. It was a splendid evening for a charming outdoor wedding. Back to the Jessem router table to route the rails and stiles. The Jessem routing table, including the Mite-R Slide 2 and the clear-cut stock guides, makes routing rails and stiles a snap. It also helps to have a Bora Portamate variable speed 3¼ horsepower router motor under the table. The router literally cut through the Peruvian walnut like knife through butter. The clear-cut stock guides do a great job of holding down the stock. Here I'm using 220 grit sandpaper to get that granite-like finish. A nice complement to the orbital sander is the hook and loop hand sanding mouse block. I picked up a pair at Amazon and I use it primarily for finishing sanding. As you watch me glue up the rails and stiles, let me comment on how I determined the final dimensions of the rails and stiles. I basically fit the rails and stiles around the completed panel. This requires some careful thought and some math. Freud has a very detailed instructions that came with the 3-bit raised to panel set. I'll provide a link to this instruction sheet with this video. Additionally, there are several YouTube videos that are dedicated to constructing rails and stiles, including videos on Freud's website. Once you've gone through the process a couple of times, it becomes a snap. The edge sander you see here on another project is rapidly becoming my most used and versatile power tool. After the edge sander, it's a final trip to the downdraft table, then on to a couple more coats of deft lacquer. Since this was the first time using the Peruvian walnut, it absorbed a lot of deft. Since I grew up in Wyoming and worked on a ranch, I was amazed at how much water horses could consume, but I didn't realize they could also consume so much deft. The last step to making this sign was to add some color to the horses. I brushed on some General Finishes Van Dyke Brown Glaze. I lightly applied 2 coats. After each coat dried, I'd put another quick coat of deft on. The glaze really does a fantastic job of accentuating the horses without subduing the oak grain patterns. So here's the final product. I love how it turned out, and especially how the glaze really brought out the horses, making them the center of attention as they should be. I want to introduce you to one of my new additions to my shop, and this cute little thing is called Brora. She's about 8 weeks old. We just picked her up last week.
And she came from a little town in Slineville in Ohio, from Kingdom Hearts Kennel, which is a wonderful place. And we're looking forward to her. She's already taken to my shop, and we look forward to tuning in on my future videos, and you'll see more and more of this cute little thing along with her big brother. So don't forget to hit that subscribe button, ring the bell, and see you next video.